All right. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna take a mental break from new material. Uh, Day after Halloween, I still have cobwebs in my head. Uh, Not that I, just, yeah. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set the stage for the last exam. I would love feedback. We had several people have hundreds and 95s. I would love for you guys that did well to share how you prepared, how you studied, also how do you approach questions utilizing feedback sheet. I just want to plant that seed. I'd love that kind of feedback. Um, but I want to re-go over your grades. So look at this, guys. 65 is a C. I do that on purpose. 65 is a C. It's not hard to make a C in my class. I want to protect my A's and I want to protect my B's. But when it comes to C's, I'm like Oprah giving away cars on her TV show. Did you get a C? Did you get a C? Like you have to really not. It's not hard to get a C. I want to go over the optional test that kind of gets confusing. Both of my parents are retired elementary educators. My dad, middle school math teacher. I'm basically giving you a redo on material so that you can show me you know it at a passing level. I'm not ready to commit what I'm going to ask. I'll probably look at it on an individual basis or try to have some questions from certain things I think a majority of people miss. I don't know. But if you're happy with your grade after exam 3, A, B, or C, take it and go spend that time on other tests, other materials. The end of the semester sucks. You got projects, you got other tests, so finals time is usually when students do the worst on my tests, but I don't think it's anything personal, it's just you have other stuff. And you can't start studying for mine until you finish the other things. And so I'm just giving it as an option. One, it's stuff you've already had before, so there shouldn't be as much cramming. But two, it gives you a chance to show me you learned from those trip ups, from those mistakes. If you do take the cumulative final, well, now you've had 4 exams and they're 25% each. So I can't tell you what you need. I'm just asking that you do the math. You can just say, all right, what if I make a 60? Add them up, divide by 4. What if I make it so you can do the hypothetical thing on what you need and what you make? Okay. Any questions or clarifications about the optional cumulative? I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but it's not new material. Okay. Let's get into test. I have pen and paper. My intent was to I had a couple students concerned about time of writing circles, writing lists, and then having enough time for questions. I think when you don't know, you don't know. I think there was plenty of time to have more questions, just based off of how people were turning it in. At the time, I had no idea. So knowing that your next test is going to literally be the same material, same kind of questions, just now on upper extremity muscles, wrist, elbow, radial, shoulder, scapula. 30 questions, 33 questions. Fair? $33 or 30? I got you. 33? Okay. 33. And let's go with 33 because that could kind of help weigh out some of the lack of questions on the first test. Because I swear someone finished in like 10 minutes. So 33 questions. Was there any types of questions you thought were unfair or that we didn't And you could like say, you know, I'll pull up a picture of it, but was there any questions that you felt, um, that we didn't quite prepare for? Again, I'm just trying to use this as a learning experience. Was there anything that was kind of, or were all the questions pretty much what we tried to, okay? Um, I'll turn it over to you guys if anybody wants to. Is anybody in witness protection? All right, I won't do it. I'm bad. Sounds like, dude, I've been in witness protection for 5 years. So what I'll do is if you don't speak loud, that's okay. I might project on the speaker. Anybody do well and would like to share how they not just studied, prepared, but even how do you approach the questions utilizing your scratch paper, trends? Anybody care to help us out by some study prep advice? Just gonna, I'm just gonna say that these, well, no, I'll do them all. So 80, 80, 95, 90, 90, 95, 80, 80, 95, 100, 100, 95, 85, 65, 95, 45, 85, 90, 75, 85, 70, 60, 95, 75, 95, 65. That was section one. Section two, 80, 80, 80, 65, 75, 65, 95, 90, 80, 35, 75, 85, 95, 75, 90, 85, 95, 95, 60, 95. So the overall class average for section two was an 80 average. And the overall average for exam two in section one was at 83. I shoot for a 75. So again, I'm trying to do is try to offer, if anybody wants to help give some advice for my students who aren't getting what they, and you know what, maybe they need to own it, be like, I just need to study hard. But what if there's something they're missing? And sometimes I don't know what they're missing. Sometimes other students have good advice on their approach or how they study or how they approach the questions that I'm like, wow, that's a great point. Think about that. Because we all learn differently. All I can get is general feedback on the questions or the type of questions. Were they fair? Were they not fair? What I did, you know, we'll have more questions because we'll have time for it. Any feedback at all? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Oh, gotcha. So the study was utilizing both, right? So like so not just relying on just the visual, not just relying on just the static picture, but trying to incorporate both into awesome. Awesome. Were you a circle person, a list person? Exactly. Like, and that's I think the beauty of it. Like I had students who made 100 using circles, and I had students make 100 not using circles. It's just a teaching tool to help us try to remember, because you have some muscles that are super obvious and then you have other muscles that are as obvious. And so just a method to try to remember those directions of pull. So again, I don't want people to think, well, I have to learn circles. You don't have to learn circles to get these concepts. Awesome. Thank you for that feedback. I think that's very helpful. So utilizing both the PowerPoint and the PDF and the pictures. Awesome. Any other study tips, feedback? Who studies, does anybody get into small groups or study groups? I know sometimes study groups can be negative because like you end up talking about, sports or whatever, but was the study groups beneficial, helpful?
Like, like talking with other people, seeing how they view or something,
Mm,
how to do, and then like kind of putting two brains together better than one.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I think also the power of groups, even if you don't do it multiple times, just even if it's one group, at the end to make sure what you have written down, because got some of this stuff, abduction, adduction, abductors, adductors, in, out, left, right. To me, it's very easy to accidentally write something wrong. Or what if I said something? I'm not infallible. So having a small group can help check yourself, because if you're studying the wrong thing, if you just wrote down something, one thing, and you've been studying it, you've been etching in your head. So small groups can also help us to kind of check our notes, or help us to make sure that we're on the same path. Because if you're studying some, wait, I have it as this. Oh, well, we all have it as that. And oh, okay, I'm glad I caught that before I imprinted it in my brain. So like I said, I don't think you have to rely on small groups all the time, but I think trying to get in one small group session could be valuable just to make sure your notes are clear. Is there a type of question you feel the most comfortable with? Like in other words, when I say what's the functions of this muscle? No, nothing fancy, just how does this muscle pull? Those should be kind of like the most. And then what's next? Like the stretch questions might be, because that's pretty straightforward, right? If it's a flexion puller, I want to extend the joint. And um, then maybe the next tricky one is multi-joint stuff, like the one on the test where I asked about the knee flexors. Well, my hip is flexed, so I can really hit those vastis more, because if I extended my hip, that rectus is gonna get stretched, and I won't be able to, I won't be able to flex as much, right? So maybe that's the next level of tricky. Absolutely.
Like, I felt like the word threw me off. I didn't know if you meant which one was stretched more while slice or stretched more than you know extended.
I'm so glad you asked that. I'm gonna literally pull up that question. Something I rarely do. Let's see. So here is the question. But based on the left hip and knee position, and hopefully it should come up there too. Based on the left hip and knee position, which muscle would be getting stretched more at the left knee than if the hip was extended? So in my mind, I'm not saying I accomplished that goal, but in my mind, I was really trying to go into detail to filter the question. So based on the left hip and knee position, which muscle would be getting stretched more at the left knee than if the hip was extended? So I know that if my hip was extended, I'd be stretching that rectus. And I also know if my rectus is being stretched, I probably couldn't swoosh my calf into my thigh as much, right? When my hip is flexed, I can swoosh. I can flex my knee even more. So the reason I can flex my knee more is now my rectus isn't my limiting factor. My rectus is not being stretched as much as when my hip is extended. Does that make sense? Because we went in class over a lot. Like if I really want to stretch my rectus, I want to extend my hip and flex my knee. So if I want to say, hey, rectus, I don't want you to be stretched, I'm going to flex my knee. And so now I can stretch more of my vasti muscles. I can get my vasti muscles a better stretch because I can flex my knee more with my hip flexed and not extended. Does that make sense? And again, I want to learn also, was after going over it and rereading it, is there still a problem with the way it was worded, or it just kind of got? Uh-huh,
Looking at the, answers first.
uh-huh,
There's
uh-huh.
So I was like thinking, you extended it all right to be stretched more. This, right.
Okay, let's see. Okay, but the rectus wouldn't be, I'm sorry, the biceps femoris, right? So, based on the left hip and knee position, which muscle would be getting stretched more at the left knee? The biceps femoris would not be getting stretched at all at the left knee, right? Because it's a flexor. So it would be like really, really, really slack. So the left knee, like think of it as process of supination, like that knee is flexed. So I have really four options, my extensors. Rectus I'm going to eliminate because my hip is flexed, it's on slack. So then it's my other vasti and the answer choice. I think I would put vastus intermedius. But I mean, it should, like from a, like again, like you can flex your knee more here than you could right there. And these kind of things help us to explain why. Like I can't flex my knee more when my rectus is my limiting factor. Like my rectus is like, dude, no. And so if I'm trying to get a deeper stretch of my vasti, I need to get my rectus unlocked and slacked. And now I can flex my knee more in my vasti. Like, oh, I finally feel it. Thank you for that question. That helps me make better questions. Bless you. And so I'm assuming the hardest ones, I don't mean to assume, because we shouldn't, or the contraction ones, or are we feeling like now more confident in the agonist contraction kind of stuff? Oh, let me pull one of those up. Got it. Getting workouts then. Is that a fair question? Identify one agonist at the trunk and the contractions right from start to finish. So the contraction questions, all good? Dumbbells trying to bend her to the right. She would need muscles that are pulling to the left laterally. So whatever one I listed, I forgot if it was a left external, left internal. And then you establish, okay, those left laterals are on. I like to think of it as a positive, right? I'm turning them on. So if I see motion in that direction, that's got to be positive concentric work. If I see motion in the other direction, that's got to be negative work. In this case, we saw motion in the opposite direction, so it'd be eccentric. Left external, the left side one, they're eccentric direction. So if you had to rank them, do you think the stretch, the multi-articular stretching questions might be the hardest ones? Yeah, that's fair. Lucky for us, we don't have as many of those in the upper extremity. Any other questions, feedback? All right. What I'll do is, if that's it, I'll in class, if anybody wants to hang around after and look at some questions you missed, I'll be happy to do it one at a time, or wait until my office hours. 9:30. Y'all have a good weekend. We'll get back to work learning new muscles.